And now we're on Daf Yudalin on base Amar Rabbi Meir. Shamati kol she'ein bo echad mikol elu masiyan lekahuna. If there's no suffix mamzerus, nesinus, or avdus, then the almana is ksheira lekahuna. Now, at the simple reading level, Rabbi Meir here is repeating exactly what we saw in the Tanakama. By kol she'ein, we're only being machshir in almonas isa if ein ba suffix mamzerus, suffix nesinus, suffix of the kochavim, what we call psulei kol. And Rabbi Meir is repeating the same thing. So the Gemara is going to try to analyze. Then the Brisa quotes Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Om Bishum Rabbi Meir. This seems to be a different tradition of Rabbi Meir. V'cheino Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh Omer Kidvarov, Ezi Almonas Isa. So Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseru were machshir Almonas Isa. Kol shenitma ba suffix cholol. So that part of the quote of Rabbi Meir is identical to what we saw before. And we can be machshir almonas isa because it's only suffix cholol. Now Rabbi Meir adds something new. Makirin Yisrael mamzerin shebeneim ve'ein makirin chalolim shebeneim. We're going to be machshir and almonas suffix mamzer because if indeed her late husband was a mamzer, then we would know about it. But when it comes to a psul of cholol, like for example, if the almona is married to a suffix cholol, then we say ein makirin chalolim shebeneim. And we're going to passel an almana suffix cholol, which is the exact opposite of what we said in the name of Rabbi Meir until now. So now the Gemara goes back to the top of the Brisa, takes it apart piece by piece, and asks three kashas on the Brisa. Omar, Ezi almonas isa, kol she'ein bo lo mishum mamzerus, lo mishum nesinus, lo mishum avdei malacha. So the only time that we're going to say that, right? You have to get the negatives and the positives here. It's a little bit tricky. Let's see how we want to say it. I think if we say it in the positive, maybe it'll be easier. Oh, all right. So we'll do it the way the Gemara does. So when is almonas isa kshera? That's only because there's no possibility of mamzerus, nesinus, and abdei malach. So it's only in a case of a suffix of psulei kol that we passel the wife of the suffix psul kol, or kahuna. The implication is that if it's only a suffix cholol, kosher. Maishna hanach dorais, maishna chol nami dorais. Why are you being machmir and psulei kol at a suffix mamzer, etc., apostles is good? So you can tell me, because if we knew for sure that it was a mamzer, then it would be dorais. Psul mamzer is dorais. So why not apply the same chumrah to cholol? That if it's a suffix cholol, that's also a suffix dorais. So why is almana suffix chol kshera? This suit. Next question. It says in the Brayso Omer Rabbi Meir Shamati shekol she'ein ba echad mikol elu masiyan lekahuna. if there are no psulim of mamzer nosan v'evet, and you're left with a suffix cholol, is Masiyan Lakuna, so the Gemara has Hainu Tanakama. Rabbi Meir is just repeating what we saw in the Tanakama. That Almonas Isak Shira, but only in Almonas Safek Cholol, but not in the case of Almonas Safek Mamzer, etc. So what did Rabbi Meir add to the Tanakama? Sue in a third kasha. It says in the Bryce Rabbi Shimon Elazar Mishum Rabbi Meir. V'chein Haya Rabbi Shimon Menaseh Omer Kedvarav. Ezui Almonas Isa Shech Shiru Ol Shenitma Ba Safek Chol, implying that if it's a Safek Mamzer or any of the Psuli Kol, Einok Shira. Correct? So that once there's an admixture here of an almon of a suffix mamzer, then what? Just 1 second. Then then Rabbi Meir is adding that we would be machshir the almon of a suffix mamzer. Why? Because if he was a mamzer, we would know about it. That's called makirin Yisrael mamzerim shabbat. The ein makirin chalolim shabbat. So we're going to passel an almon of a suffix cholol because there's the absence of a rumor is not a proof. So the Gemara says, "V'amet reisha chol kosher," meaning suffix chol is kosher. Right? In the case of Almonas Isa, they testified that she's kshera, she's muteres lakuna. So if Rabbi Meir is saying ein makirin kalolim shebehem, and he's passing an almona suffix chol, that's against the reisha. Whereas the reisha, we said that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar at the beginning of his words, he said that almonas isa, that's kshera, because nitma ba suffix chol, that suffix chol is kosher. How do we reconcile this stira in Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar? So the Gemara is going to answer all these kashas by reinterpreting the machlokas tanoim in the Brisa. It's not about Almonas Isa. Almonas Isa is a machlokas Shim Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel. But our tanoim are arguing about something entirely different. Omer Rabbi Yochanan, it's all about how do we gauge the response of someone or the lack of response when we accuse him of being possible. Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Mamzer Tzoveach, we have a person, there's an error, there's some sort of rumor going on that he's a Mamzer, and we call him a Mamzer, Tzoveach, and he starts screaming back and forth in protest, I'm not a Mamzer. However, Cholol, when they accuse him of being a Cholol, Shosei, he doesn't have to answer anything. And that's going to be the machlokas between the Tanoim. Ika Beinayim. Is Tanakama Sover called Psul de Kari Levis Shasik also? So the fact that he is Shosek and he doesn't protest, that's evidence that Shtika Koda, The Hachikama Tanakama. This is the interpretation of the Tanakama. Ezi Almonas Isa, about which we have Machlokas Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua's Machshir. Kol she'en ba lo shsok mamzerus, lo shsok nesinus, lo shsok avdei malach, lo shsok chala. The husband of this almana was not puzzled because of shtika. When they called him a mamzer, when they called him a nasin, they called him a guy. And Rabbi Yeshua does not accept the principle here of shtika kodo when you accuse him of being a psul kol. And for that matter, even in the case of shsok cholol, even when somebody accosts him and said, "Oh, you're pasul akuna." So, in other words, Rabbi Yeshua will not be machshir in almanas isa if there was shtika. They called him, accused him of being a chol, and he was shosek. Because in such a case, we're going to apply the principle of shtika kododam. So, what is the situation in which almanas isa's shera? It's got to be a case where we know that her husband is a suffix chala. And then we don't apply the principle of shtika kodah because we have all the facts on the ground. It's an objective suffix. But if there was shtika kodah, let's say, for example, we called him one psul and he was tzoveach, he starts yelling, and we called him another psul and he was shosek, then we're going to say he's pasul because shtika kodah, and it makes no difference whether it's psul kol, that they accuse him of being a nasin, mamzer, or an eved, or if it's psul chal. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. But we're going to apply the principle now of shtika kodah to pasalim, whether or not he was being accused of being a psul kol or a psul kuhuna. That's the Tanakam. Amalei Rabbi Meir responds to the Tanakam and he says, Hana, the psule kol of mamzer nosim the Eved, who? That's where I agree with you that shtika kodah. Why? Because he should have responded. I mean, the kapasale b'kol. I mean, that's a very severe psul. He better make a protest. And then we're going to apply the principle of shtika kodah. Avol shtuki chalal. If we accuse him of being a chalal, which we said would be a suffix. So it's interesting. When he's shosek, when they call him a psul kol, he's shtika kodah. He should have animately objected and protested against their accusing him of being a psul kol. But in the case where they of a shasok chalal, and they accused him of being pasul akun and he would shosek, kosher. Why? What happened to Shtika Kodah? The Hadish Shasik Mishum Blo Pasle. This is Rav Meir's Chiddush here. Since he's kosher level of kol, he doesn't pay any attention. He's not concerned and nervous about being pasul a kahuna. So his shtika doesn't prove anything. So when Rabbi Meir says shamati kol she'ein ba echad mikol elu masiyan lekahuna, that's dafka. If be echad mikol elu, tahainu mamzer nosin vi eved, is then shtika is a shtika poselis, and we're going to apply the principle of shtika kodah. But if he doesn't respond when they call him a cholo, because he can marry anyone in the kol, so the shtika doesn't mean anything. He didn't even respond. He didn't feel it was necessary to get involved. Uka Omer Rav Shimon ben Elazar l'Tana Kama, to Rabbi Meir. So Rav Shimon ben Elazar turns to the Tanakama of Rabbi Meir, and he says, "Ish milach de machshir Rabbi Meir b'shtika lo dekar lechol v'shasik el dekar le'madter v'shasik." Just the opposite of what we said before. That he's not going to respond adamantly and protest when they accuse him of being a mamzer. So shtika doesn't prove a thing. But dafka in the case where they accuse him of being a chalal, that's where shtika kodah, and he's pasul according to Rabbi Meir. And the Gemara explains why. Behind the shasik, that which he's shosek, in the case of Karle Mamzer b'shasek, that's not a proof for anything. Why? Savar, I don't have to yell and scream, because Mamzer kola isle. If someone is a Mamzer, there's a kol, a rumor goes around that says he's a kol, but I don't have a kol that I'm a Mamzer. I don't have to therefore protest. I'm not going to pay any attention to your accusation when you accuse me of being a Mamzer. Avol Mamzer v'tzoveh. Chol v'shoseg. But if we accuse him of being a Mamzer, he starts yelling and screaming and claiming I'm not a Mamzer. But if somebody accuses him of being a chalal and he's shoseg, possible. And now the Gemara is going to offer a whole psychological explanation as to why his shtika raises our eyebrows in the case of a chalal. Right? In the case of mamzer, he feels he doesn't have to make any protest because there's no kol about him that he's a mamzer. But in the case where they accuse him of being a chalal, he thinks he's better off if he's quiet and they'll let things go than if he starts screaming. Sover mistie. It's better if they're going to call me names and call me a chalal, but they're not going to do a very basic fundamental research project to determine whether I'm a chalal or not. The lo mafkile mikol. See, his philosophy is that, look, they're not telling me that I'm sorry. They're accusing me of being pasul lekahuna. But if I'm quiet, they'll let it go by. But if I'm going to start yelling and kicking up dust and protesting, so then they're going to get involved in an investigation. And at the end, I have to worry about the fact that the investigation is going to prove that I'm actually a chalal and I'm pasul lekahuna. So it's better for me to be shosek and let it fly away, because as soon as I start yelling and screaming, oh, what's going on over here? And they're going to investigate it in a fundamental way. Now the Gemara presents a steer between two brides. This Tani Chader Rabbi Yossi Omer Shesok Mamzer Kosher shesok cholol pasul. V'tanya either shesok cholol kosher, shesok mamzer pasul. Lo kasher. The first brisa reflects the shita of the Tanakama Alibud Rabbi Meir, that shtika in a case where they accuse him to be a mamzer is posel. Again, that's the Tanakama. But shtika in a case where they accuse him of being a chalal is kosher. Lo kasha ha Tanakama Alibud Rabbi Meir, v'ha Rabbi Shimon Elazar Alibud Rabbi Meir. So the first brisa reflects the shita of Tanakama in Rabbi Meir. That soak mamzer is possible. Very severe accusation. He should have yelled and screamed. But soak chalal kosher, because he didn't have to make a big deal about it. He's not concerned about psulei kahuna. And the second brisa reflects the shita of Shimon Elazar in Rabbi Meir, that Rabbi Meir rejected this ruling of shesok chalal pasul, and shesok mamzer is kosher. This leads us to the Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Yud Daled Amud Beis. Rav Yossi, Ma'isa b'tinokes, yard the lemalos mayim min ha'ayin. She went down to the Mayon outside the city limits in order to draw water from the well. Benensa, and somebody raped her. And we don't know if the boel is kosher or pasul. And the question now is her status regarding kahuna. Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, Rova Anshe Ir Masiin Lakuna. If the rape took place outside the city limits, but that city is mostly ksherim, let's say it's a Jewish town, then Masiin Lakuna, we're not going to passel her because we're going to assume that the boel came from the road. So Reizuti Nase Lakuna. So the Gemara says that this principle of Holchanach Arov Anshe Ir, Amalei Rav Nachman, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, the Omer Kaman. We have Machlok Shin Rav Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua. Where does Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri fit in? Iker Rav Gamliel, Afilu Rov Psulim Nami Machsh. The Iker Rabbi Yeshua, Afilu Rov Ksherim Nami Pasal. Amalei, so Rav Nachman says to Rava, Hachi Amar Rav Yudah Marav, the Mishnah is really Rabbi Yeshua, and we're not going to rely on Rov Ksherim, but here we have what's called Trey Ruby. That's the Gemara here on the top of Tesvavim and Aleph. Shebekronos Tzipori Hayamais. So we're talking about caravans that pass by the city of Tzipori, and they come in on the Yom HaShuk, and they're transporting merchandise from somewhere to Tzipori. And this girl was raped outside the city. So we don't know where the bowl was coming from, whether he's coming from the city or he's coming from the Alma, somewhere in the world. And Mimarashach, there's a rove. Why? Because here there's Kronos Shel Tzipori that passed by, and therefore if we're going to the world, not to the city, then we look at the rove of Tzipori, or the Kronos of Tzipori. Those are Jewish merchants. So there's a whole shayara, a whole caravan of Bnei Adam that are passing by, so we don't know where the bowl came from. Did he came from the city? Did he come from the Bnei Adam of the Seah HaOveresham? And Mimarashach, we have a rove, whether it's the rove Anshe Ir or the rove Anshe Seah. And therefore, the Tinokas is allowed to marry a Kohen. Now, how does this square with Rabbi Yeshua? Rabbi Yeshua was the one who said, I passel even in Rove. But the answer is, Rabbi Yeshua passels in Rove because only one Rove. But here, in the case of Tinokets, the Yardalamaya, there are two Roves because there was a Seah of Kronos Shel Tzipori. And Rabbi Yeshua would agree that if there's two Roves, then we are Machshir Hara and the Tinokos. And this is all based on the principle of Rabbi Yanai, Rabbi Yanai, Nivelo, the Kronos Chera Lakuna, the Kronos Salka Daitach. Ella Nivelis Bishas Kronos. At the time when there's Shayoras coming from here and there. Aval Perish Echad Mi Sipori Ubal. Is Avlad Shtuki. So if one of the Bnei Ha'ir of the city of Tzipori came out and was Boel, and then we only have one Rove, then the Vlad is a Shtuki. But when we have a possibility that the bowl might have come from the Shayara, and there we have a Rove Ksherim, so we have two Roves, then we could be Machsh. The Vlad would not be a Shtuki, it'd be Kosher. But in the case of Piresh Mi Echad Mi Bnei Ha'ir Tzipori, then we only have one Rove, and therefore we're going to ask him that the Vlad is a Shtuki. Okay, then, so here's where we're going to stop on the top of Daf Tesvav Omid Aleph. Have a great day.